I'm Brent Goff. It's good to have you with us. We begin with the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that the, quote, tyrants in Iran will pay the full price for the latest round of missile strikes across Israel. A major hospital in the south and parts of the Tel Aviv skyline have been hit, with emergency services reporting that dozens of people have been injured.
This morning, the largest hospital in southern Israel became a danger zone. Around 7 a.m. local time, sirens, then explosions from intercepted missiles rang out across Israel. But not all could be stopped. Smoke poured from the roof of the Sorokar hospital, which provides medical services to around 1 million people. While inside, first responders called out for survivors and surveyed the damage.
The damage caused is extensive and significant, primarily to the structure that sustained the direct hit, and therefore we want to be cautious. As long as we do not receive the necessary approvals that the structure is safe and not at risk of collapsing, we are currently not entering except for surgical rescue operations, with an emphasis on saving lives.
Iranian state media is reporting the target was a military site near the hospital, rather than the hospital itself. Further north, in Holon and Tel Aviv, several residential buildings were struck.
We still have a lot of work behind me, as you can see, extracting patients from all the buildings, going door from door. Our teams are together with the fire department and front command, trying to get people out of their houses. You can see the house behind me is still on fire.
Israel's defense minister accused Iran of war crimes and, along with Prime Minister Netanyahu, ordered the military to increase the intensity of their attacks on Iran. Overnight, the Israeli Defense Forces targeted the nuclear reactor in the area of Aryeh in Iran and struck what it called a nuclear weapons development site in the area of Natanz. Information out of Iran has been particularly scarce after a prolonged internet shutdown. Iranian authorities claim the internet restrictions are due to security threats. This woman left Iran through the Turkish border because she didn't feel safe anymore.
It was so scary. I heard a lot of voice at night. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep really 5 nights in a row because I heard a lot of bomb sound near the east of Tehran.
Iranians are now bracing for a longer conflict as Israel vows to respond even more aggressively.
And our Middle East analyst, Shani Rozanes, she's here in the studio with me now. Shani, we just heard there, Israel says that Iran will pay a heavy price for this attack. So we're going from one escalating moment to the next.
It seems like it, and it seems like without external intervention, nothing's going to stop this from spiraling. We've heard that Tehran has been willing to go for negotiations. We know the Americans don't have too much of an appetite. There's a lot hanging now on what Trump will decide. Is he going to step in, as the Israelis are very much advocating for and pushing for? Or is he maybe going to lean towards the more diplomatic solution, try to find a way to bring an end to all of this?
And what about what we're hearing from Iran? The supreme leader says that the country will never compromise or surrender. I'm wondering, does Iran have the capacity to continue fighting on?
Well, this is exactly, the assumptions that both sides are working on. We're getting into this, what might become a war of attrition. I mean, we're already more than 7 days in. The Israelis were counting on the fact that Iran, because of the fear for the stability of the regime more than anything, would not want this to get too prolonged. And they felt like we can survive the Iranians. And the Iranians are actually thinking exactly the same about the Israelis, assuming Israelis are far more vulnerable, trying to sustain, first of all, geographically, it's a very dense part of that they managed to hit again and again, civilian infrastructure. And they also realized that Israel, trying to maintain an economy, Israel, after 20 months of war in Gaza, would not have the patience to, last for too long. But it's amazing to see Israeli support for the war is very high. Israelis believe Netanyahu that it is done for the sake of the defense in Israel and not other motives, unlike what they feel about the war in Gaza, for example. And it seems like both sides are prompting up themselves and their people for a longer stretch.
Yeah, speaking of the people, hundreds of Iranians have been killed in Israeli strikes. Israelis, they're coming under Iranian fire. Let's, get beyond the keeping score part of this story. Talk to me about the people here who are paying the price.
Definitely. You see, Israelis are, in a way, have been hearing about Iran and the Iranian threat for decades now. And the idea of, OK, let's get it off the table, let's do that. That's one thing that's leading the Israelis through very tough times. People in Israel have never experienced such damages so close at home for such a long period. But then, at the same time, it's a message that Israel is it's a deeper shift in Israeli mindset after October 7th, when they say, we are no longer willing to accept any threats, dormant as they might be, rhetoric as there might be, hyperbolic speech as it might be for the sake of whatever other reasons. If you're threatening us, even only by statements, we're not going to tolerate that anymore. And it seems like in that aspect, Netanyahu and the Israeli people are at line. The picture in Iran is far more complicated because, of course, it's a very divided country. You have the people supporting the regime, which are estimated to be actually the minority of the people in Iran. And then you have the rest, the masses, who are not part of that, but they are the immediate victims to that. We're talking about hundreds of people who have died. We're talking about thousands who are injured. Just imagine the American president just texting in the middle of the night, please leave Tehran. The panic, not everybody has means. Iran has been suffering from the sanctions, very hard financial strains. The damage, the disruption to the lives of so many people in Iran is so big. We are, unfortunately, because of the nature of the regime, don't know enough from inside what is happening. And also because of the nature of the regime, it's hard for me to imagine this would be anything that will be part of the calculus of the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khomeini.
And the fate of both of these peoples, the Israelis and the Iranians, hangs in the balance right now. Depends somewhat on the decision that's going to be made by the U.S. president. We're hearing that a decision of whether or not to get involved will be made, in the next 48 hours? What are you hearing?
Well, probably maybe even less. The idea was that the idea that the Israelis were trying to sell the American president, we've done 90% of the job, you've got the last 10, and then you get to get credit for the whole 100. Basically, they need the Americans to bring what they call the mother of all bombs, the bunker buster bomb, to go through the Fordow nuclear site, which is believed to be the main site still untouched for the Iranian nuclear program. The problem is that, first of all, there could be many after effects that are out of the Americans' hands, and this is exactly what Trump is afraid of. And now we're also hearing reports that there's a lot of doubt within the Pentagon of how efficient this particular bomb actually is. And if this cannot be such a quick in and out, the Americans might not be stepping in. And I think as you said, the next 24 hours are very crucial.
Our Middle East analyst, Shani Rozanes, as always. Shani, good to have you in the studio.
You're welcome.
Thank you. International diplomatic efforts are underway to de-escalate the conflict between Israel and Iran. Reports say that a number of European ministers of foreign affairs are planning to hold talks with Iranian representatives in Switzerland as soon as Friday. Our Europe correspondent, Anchal Vohra, is following that story for us. She joins me now. Anchal, so how likely is it that these talks are actually going to take place tomorrow?
It's quite likely. There's a confirmation that has come in from Iran's foreign minister that he is going to be traveling to Geneva tomorrow and meeting foreign ministers of France, Germany, the United Kingdom. He'll also be meeting EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kaja Kallas. Now, all of this is quite important because this is the first diplomatic meeting since this conflict between Israel and Iran has escalated. It remains to be seen what sort of headway it will make, but the Americans will be in the loop because, according to reports, the British Foreign Secretary is expected to speak to his American counterpart before the meeting takes place. It's also interesting to note that Iran is finally on the table with the Europeans because over the last year or so, as the Iranians and Americans were trying to revive the nuclear deal, even Iranians were sort of opposed to having Europeans on the table because there was this mood there that the Europeans are no good, that they cannot deliver, and that they rather just talk straight to Trump. But now it seems that Europe is back on the table.
Yeah, that is quite a noticeable change of events, Anchal. Do we know exactly what will be on the table in these talks?
What we have learned is that Europeans are going to push for limiting Iran's nuclear program. We don't know to what extent. Remember, the Israeli attack on Iran, the latest Israeli attack on Iran, came a day after an IAEA resolution which was backed by France, Germany, and the UK, in which said essentially that Iranians were not sharing enough information about their uranium stockpile, they were not allowing enough inspections, and there was widespread concerns. Although Europe is divided on how best to deal with the situation in Iran, and those voices have been heard over the last a few days, there is concern over how Iran's nuclear program is evolving. Now, in the past, when the Obama deal had been signed, the Europeans were backing Iran's right to get back to enrichment later. So the sunset clause would expire, which means that at some point Iran would be able to enrich more uranium and develop its civilian nuclear program. Now, does that continue to be the case? That is unknown. European positions may well have shifted now, and they may push more for a American point of view here, which is zero enrichment or definitely much reduced. Remember, the real concern here is that Iran has increased its uranium enrichment to 60%. That is close to, it doesn't sound very close to 90%, which is weapons grade, but it is quite close to 90% weapons grade enrichment level, and this has everybody here concerned.
Yeah. Our Brussels correspondent, Anchal, Vohra, with the... All right, our coverage continues now. I want to bring in Aryeh Myers. He is a senior paramedic and international relations officer for Magen David Adom. That's the Israeli National Emergency Service, and he joins me now from Tel Aviv. It's good to have you with us. I want to ask you about the hospitals, the Soroka hospital that was hit earlier today in the southern city of Beersheba. How severely has that impacted the emergency services in the area?
So good afternoon. First of all, I'm actually in Soroka Hospital in Beersheba as we speak. The building, one of the buildings that was directly struck by the missile, sustained very, very extensive damage. The blast impact from that missile affected the rest of the hospital as well. This is a very large hospital over large grounds, and there are smashed windows, broken doors, damaged equipment throughout the hospital. And that's been affected directly by that missile.
And talk to us about the current search and rescue efforts in Tel Aviv and elsewhere in Israel. I mean, how are emergency services coping?
So our role in the state of Israel is the National Emergency Medical Service and the blood services. Here in Soroka Hospital, we've been involved all day today in evacuating patients from here to different hospitals since this hospital has been so badly affected. In Tel Aviv and central Israel, our teams have been on duty, obviously, throughout 24 hours a day. Throughout today, they've been searching various sites to ensure that there are no casualties that we haven't been able to reach. Search and rescue teams are doing that, along with Magen David Adom EMTs and paramedics, using all sorts of vehicles, ambulances, intensive care units. From here, we've been using also specialized intensive care buses that have the capability of transferring 7 critical care patients at any given time, ensuring that we're able to respond to whatever the needs of the state of Israel are at any given moment.
Mr. Myers, in your opinion, how prepared were Israeli medics and other emergency workers for the type of escalation that we're seeing now?
So as Israel's national organization, we have over 35,000 staff and volunteers, always prepared to respond to whatever the national emergency might be, whether those are routine emergencies of car accidents and women having babies, or whether it's a situation like the war we have been seeing for the last 21 months, especially the escalation over the last few days with the Iranian attacks. The missiles that we've seen here in Israel have been much more significant than we've seen in the past. And as the National EMS organization, we have been prepared. We are well trained. We do continuous training for mass casualty events and also for responses like we're doing here in Beersheba today of evacuating patients, secondary evacuations from a hospital, from a medical facility, a civilian facility, to make sure that those patients can continue receiving the care that they need, both during the transfer and once they are at different hospitals across the country.
Mr. Myers, I just want to ask you, how unprecedented is this situation for your country? I mean, have you ever seen an emergency situation like this before?
This country, unfortunately, has known many wars over the years, many terror attacks, many incidents that we've had to deal with. The scale this time with these missiles that we've been seeing, the scale of the damage is much more significant, where one missile that gets through the aircraft defense systems, one of those missiles is causing a huge amount of damage. They're carrying 500 kilo payload sometimes, and that's causing damage not just at the site of the missile strike, but for several streets in any direction as well. And that's exactly what happened today when there was an attack on a civilian hospital here in Beersheba.
You know, this conflict is escalating. We are still waiting to find out if the United States is going to get involved. What are your plans for a worst case scenario?
So as far as our organization is concerned, we are prepared. We have the staff all carry protective equipment, bulletproof ambulances should we need them. We have to ensure that we are able to respond to whatever the situation might be. And in order to do that, we have 2,500 emergency vehicles, and like I said, ambulances, intensive care units, specialized vehicles, ATVs to be able to reach patients wherever they are in the country, whatever condition they're in, and whatever the risks might be to our people. We will make sure that we are there to respond for the Israeli people.
Okay. Senior Paramedic Aryeh Myers. Mr. Myers, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. We know that it is a very busy time right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.